Now that we have power back, welcome back to some more Stormworks. I'm StormRunner Gaming, and sorry for slurring all those words here, but I am really late. Hopefully, I do not get fired. I don't want to be replaced here. I don't want them to grab another Stormworks character, and gosh darn it, I might get fired over this. They already had the plane and everything ready. They wanted to shoot like 20 minutes ago, but I wasn't there. I was sitting in traffic. Excuses. I don't know. I'm just gonna have to come up with something. Now that we finally have our Stormworks character ready here, let's get on to recording. Today we have this really weird Seacraft plane type of amalgamation I've put together here, and this is actually a real-life vehicle that I'm working off of here. It's actually called the Airfish 8 Seacraft, and this weird vehicle that's kind of strange is actually designed, it's actually run by this small company. I'm not exactly sure where in the world they are based off of, but anyways, they designed this a few years back now, and I thought I would try my hand at recreating it in Stormworks. And sadly, the sad truth of it is Stormworks has limited me to where I say I have to basically fail this. I'm throwing in the towel here, putting up the white flag, because I can't finish this, especially making it look like the real deal without like putting a huge jet engine on the back of it or something. I can't make it resemble the real life vehicle here. So I mean, that doesn't stop me from trying. I may bring this back up in the future. Of course, if you guys want to try and fix this, it'll be up there on the workshop. Put a jet engine and whatnot, try out whatever you want, because I don't know if I'm going to pick it up anymore, because definitely there's an aeronautical problem that I'm going to get here in a second why it doesn't work. We're going to be getting back to the Airfish 8 in a minute, but right now I have one of the 2 working planes I've ever made in Stormworks, and actually someone else helped me finish this one up here. Anyways, besides that point, this right here is sitting on land. A lot of you probably realize that, but it is one of the big factors, one of the 2 big factors that makes it so much better at taking off than our Airfish 8 over there in the harbor. And the big part of this is just friction and drag that basically make this so much easier to take off than that Airfish 8. Of course, all around our Stormworks character right now, we have air. And instead of this sitting in water, it is all within air. There's a tiny little parcel of friction between the wheels and the ground here, but comparative to the water, it's a speck of, it's a little crumb basically. It doesn't really matter. It's so minuscule that it's not really relevant to this conversation. Anyways, this trying to take off from land, it doesn't have so much friction across the wheels, and even air around this isn't as bad as the water when you're trying to take off. And even regular seaplanes need so much power and to be quite light so they don't sink into the water very much and get so much drag from that water. That's why you don't see huge planes landing, and there are very small amounts of planes that are actually boats as well, because they have all of their own problems that go with them. And of course, if we jump in this thing right now, we can start up that engine pretty quickly and take off with little to no problem. You can see we probably took off at like 50 meters a second, and that was very easy for this plane here. It didn't have much trouble taking off at all. It's pretty easy in the sky here to control. I mean, I'm not the best pilot, don't get me wrong, but it's still a pretty simple equation here to get it off. It's got plenty of power from that aircraft engine, and the Seafish 8 has plenty of power itself. It's got dual aircraft engines in there, so you'd think it would be much easier to control to get off of that water, but there's a whole nother problem we have to go through. Looks like I still can't land planes to save my lives. At least I'm living here, but it looks like we can't take back off because of those propellers. Anyways, there's the second part of this, I guess, problem with the Airfish 8 in Stormworks that I have to address here, and it's a aeronautical term called ground force. And as you can see, if we're trying to take off a seaplane or even a plane on a runway, the wings are quite close to the ground. We give it maybe like a meter or a couple of feet between the ground and the wing here. And as the seaplane or the plane on land tries to take off, the force between the ground and the wing starts to get higher. The ground is kind of like pushing the wing up, it helps it actually get off of the ground. And so that is a big force into what helps planes get off the ground. And of course, this guy, he doesn't really need ground force to take off. He's got plenty of power, he's pretty light, and he's got these things, and the ground isn't much friction to him. So it's quite easy to take him off. And of course, as we get into Stormworks seaplanes, those have a lot more problems not taking advantage of ground force. If you guys have ever tried to take off in a seaplane in Stormworks, not having that ground force actually is really hurting it in a sense, because you're trying to take off and the back end starts to dip into the water and it slows it down even more. So as you can imagine, this guy not having ground force is a huge problem. Because the only way this thing in real life actually works is because of that ground force effect. And you may be scratching your head thinking to yourself, Storm, this thing isn't on land. There's no ground to put ground force off of. But the thing is, ground force even works between different liquids as well. So we have the water under these like cup-shaped wings here. The really weird like body style. They're actually the wings of the real life plane. That helps it to take advantage of 100% of ground force and actually get it to basically hover over the water. And I don't know if you guys are excited as I am. That's a really cool thing to think about, because that's basically why this thing can hover, fly really close to the water, but it actually can't take off anymore because the real life version actually uses a supercar engine. It doesn't actually have that much power to it. In reality, it's quite underpowered, and as you can see, this one has its own problems from time to time. Don't get me wrong, it dipping into the water like a submarine is definitely an issue that I never really did fix too much. I mean, I've done some hydrofoil work with it to make it float decently well here, so I mean we can get it moving. It still does dip in from time to time. If you can control it, it can stay above the water. And there we go. Now that we've got it working, it's above the water. And you kind of have to play around with it even to float here. As you can see, without that ground force effect, this thing kind of just hobbles around on its hydrofoils here. It's not actually going to take off here. And the sad story is, the only way I've made this plane actually work is by putting in very large and very stupid looking hydrofoils that give it enough force to keep it on that plane, on the hydrofoil plane, before it actually does take off and works as a regular plane. So, I mean, I don't know. I really don't know what I want to do with this. Like I said earlier, if you guys do want to pick it up from the workshop, the link will be down below. You guys can play around with it. I am going to show off the actual version that I got to fly here, but I don't know if you guys have any crazy schemes to get some sort of ground force working for this vehicle. I'd love to hear them in those comments down below. So hopefully I didn't bore you guys with my aerodynamical explanations of planes and everything there, but I was trying to get everyone on the same level here so that we don't have any, I guess, misdemeanors or why I just can't get this thing done, why I've failed creating this. So yeah, this is the actual working version where I can get it up and flying. I mean, once it is out of the water, just like a seaplane, you can go above, below. You can basically keep it flying, and you can go as high as you want, of course, because I didn't really limit the power of this thing. I threw in 2 aircraft engines on the back end here to give it plenty of power to take off, because originally when I first started building it, I was thinking, yeah, it'll easily take off of the water. I wasn't even thinking about ground force. It's not until somebody actually reminded me of that I realized it doesn't really work. So let me get this thing started here. We got both engine powers. We're going to give it a little bit of propeller clutch. And once we get this thing moving in the water here and not dipping down, I mean, it doesn't take so much power to get it off into the air, like, it's that easy. Like, as you can see, I have to have those down. Once we put that wing down, it takes a second for me to gain control of it again, but now we're floating, or I guess floating. We're flying at a regular level here, and it works pretty easily like a plane. There's not many problems to it. We have all the different axes of control. It's a decently good plane. Of course, it's a little bit wobbly because I never really did dial in the controls for it and everything. And of course, I'm not great at flying planes myself here. So, I mean, I've never been given credit that I'm good at flying planes. But of course it does work with that huge hydrofoil on the front end that basically helps to eliminate a lot of the drag, and it's my cheating way of making ground force work for this vehicle here. So yeah, I don't know how I really want to end this. I mean, it's sad that I can't actually finish this design, so I'm gonna put it up as a work in progress. I mean, if they were to add ground force in the future, that would be a really cool thing, but I don't know. There's a lot of aerodynamical calculations that you would have to add in to make ground force work, because you would have to be calculating all the blocks, the curvature, and everything around the vehicle to make a lot more aerodynamics work and basically make ground force work. So this is where I will be ending this video. I mean, I love the design I've done on this plane, but sadly it's, I don't know, unusable. I can't really do much of anything with it just because of the aerodynamical limitations within Stormworks. And I know I've said that 20 times now, and I do apologize. But anyways, yeah. So of course, if you guys did like this video, please leave a like and consider subscribing to the channel to stay up with Stormworks and more of my content. But I've never been great at goodbyes, maybe people need me, and I need to go.